Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. And my name is Chris Gao, and I'm a client development advisor at Family Source Consultants. Thank you so much for joining us. And today, our special guest is Megan. Megan is our senior clinical and match coordinator at Family Source Consultants. Megan, can you please introduce yourself to to our viewers a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. My name, like you said, is Megan. I have been with Family Source for a year and a half now. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I am in Indiana. And like I said, I've been with Family Source for a year and a half doing our, gestational carrier, intended parents, egg donor psychological evaluations, as well as working kind of, hand in hand in the matching department. I have been a mental health counselor for coming up on 10 years now. And I've worked in lots of different realms of that in foster care and in-home services, working with the Department of Child Services a lot. Lots of different experiences and how I've used that license, but coming up on 10 years now. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And it will be a very, 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 very informative and helpful session for our viewers. Today, we will be talking about mental health evaluation or psychological evaluation, mental health counseling throughout the surrogacy process. And, for intended parents, for surrogates, and what we do, how they're helpful, why we do that. Okay?
Sure.
So we have a list of popular questions from our viewers, and the first one is, can you please explain why psychological or mental health evaluations are such an important part of the screening process for both surrogates and intended parents?
Sure. Well, I'll start, kind of with that surrogate piece.
Okay.
Obviously it's a portion of, there's standards that surrogates have to meet in order to move forward with the process. And part of that is, a psychological assessment. And that assessment is used to really do a quick glance. We use the PAI assessment, which is recommended by ASRM. And that's really used to kind of get a quick snapshot of any psychological, diagnoses or anything like that. But then we really utilize the clinical interview portion to dive into that. If, looking at the surrogate's background and her relationship and her knowledge of the surrogacy journey. And it really kind of ties all of those pieces together to really come to a conclusion as to, whether or not she's prepared and ready to move forward with a surrogacy journey. And for intended parents, I have a hard time utilizing the word evaluation for our intended parents. I think of it a little bit more as like a consultation. It's not really a pass fail, but more of an opportunity, for us to educate the intended parents about the journey they're about to go on and really kind of look at, the different emotional aspects of the journey that is unfolding and kind of how they're prepared for what's to come.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for answering that, in such detail. What are the differences between the screenings for, surrogates and intended parents? Since you were talking about we do the screening for both, for intended parents, it's less of a screening, it's more of counseling. But what are the differences other than one is a screening, one is counseling?
Sure. Yeah. With the surrogates, like I said, they'll participate in the PAI assessment. The intended parents don't have to go through that PAI assessment. Okay. So it's, the intended parents do one less part. And kind of like I said, going back to that consultation versus an actual assessment, the intended parents one is really geared more towards, that relationship with the surrogate, and are they prepared for the support what that looks like and the emotional aspects, and do they have a support system to kind of help them through all the different emotional aspects of this journey. And then the surrogates really look a lot more at, pregnancy history, psychological history, all of those different pieces to kind of look at their history and how that's going to play into the journey that they're going on, and making sure that they qualify and have the appropriate skills for what's to come. So like I said, where one's a little bit more educational and one's a little bit more, obviously evaluating the fitness for the journey.
Got it. And what about the surrogate's partner? What role does the surrogate's partner play in the screening process?
Sure. So the partners won't participate in the PAI assessment. That is for the surrogates alone. But then they will participate in that clinical interview portion. And really their role in that evaluation is questions related to their history, their relationships, so that we can evaluate for stability. It's important that a surrogate have a stable relationship if she's in one, that it is stable, and really looking at their support level of the journey and making sure that they're aware of all the twists and turns and requirements of a journey. So kind of an educational piece, as well as, making sure that they're also prepared emotionally and psychologically for supporting the surrogate throughout the journey.
Okay, I see. And, during this process, I take it as, it is an evaluation process for surrogates, but also it's an opportunity for them to ask their questions, like any sort of questions they can think of in terms of, I guess, mental health support throughout the process, or what they can expect mentally through this process. So what are some of the questions that, surrogates and intended parents should ask during this screening?
Sure. I mean, really, I don't think there's any question that's off limits at that point. So I think it's really important, if you have questions about the process or what to expect, I think that's a great point in time to start asking those questions. If you're, from a surrogate standpoint, if you're concerned about the injections, if you're concerned about the added appointments, if you're concerned about any state of or any point of the journey, I think it's an important time to bring that up and kind of talk through, where are those concerns coming from? Is it just a lack of education, or is it a needing to, think through some more of, what your support system looks like, and if you're prepared for those different stages? For the intended parents, same thing, kind of, what is my role in terms of supporting my surrogate? What is my role in that relationship? And kind of, what are those expectations? I think those are all important questions to kind of bring up. But I also think it's a great time to kind of, like you said, ask about what ongoing support is available to you. What is, especially from the surrogate side as well, who will I have in my corner throughout this journey? Obviously I have my support system around me. I have my family, I have my partner, I have whoever else is going to support me. But, those added pieces, you're working with an agency for a reason, and that agency should be able to help provide that support to you as well. So I think asking about those pieces is also very important.
Okay. And then on the other hand, as a screener, I know you've been doing this for a very long time. What are some of the things you are looking for from these screening sessions?
Yeah. Obviously there's a whole plethora of questions I come into it with, and that covers a lot of it, but it really just is, what are those communication skills like? Are you able to articulate, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what your concerns are, and kind of, an overall level of transparency. It's really important. I think, especially for the surrogates, they kind of come into the psychological evaluation scared. Like they don't want to fail. They don't want to be disqualified for any reason.
I can't fail it.
Yeah. So I think it's, really important to just be transparent about things. Talk about what those concerns are. Talk about if, anything in your history that, you're worried of how that will translate to your journey. I think it's important. That's really what we're looking for, is just a level of honesty and communication skills, for sure.
Got it. Okay, so we just got a couple of live questions, but I'm gonna save them for the end. Once we talk about all the questions on our list, and we'll address some of the live questions from our viewers. So don't worry, if you typed in a live question, we'll get to that in the end of the session. In the meantime, if you do have any further questions, please feel free to type them out, and Megan will address them. So what are some, can you give examples of some questions that surrogates and intended parents can expect during this, during the screening or counseling?
Yeah. So for the surrogates, really, we'll start off with a little bit of getting to know you, share with me a little bit about your story, your family. And we'll certainly talk about past pregnancies, any history of any mental health services in your past. And again, I can't stress being honest is important. Going to therapy isn't a bad thing. Saying that you go to therapy isn't a bad thing. So, we talk about, what that history looks like. We do a lot of educational stuff in terms of making sure that we're looking at your flexibility with your schedule and how does surrogacy and the demands of it fit into your schedule, and just talking through like the logistical pieces that maybe whether you hadn't thought about them or had, it's important to make sure we have support systems and things set up so that those things fit seamlessly into your life and your schedule as a surrogate. For intended parents, I do ask, to share your story as it pertains to, fertility and infertility. So, just being forthcoming about your story and how you got to this point. And that way we can really look at how we build from that point to the hope of surrogacy and the journey of surrogacy. And hope is a very hard thing when you've, been through infertility. So really looking at expectations and emotional pieces of the journey that's to come, and kind of how you're prepared for that and how you're prepared to kind of support your surrogate through that journey as well.
I see. How often do surrogates, or I guess intended parents, not pass the screening, or they just kind of like, hey, you're not a good fit based on the session we just had? Does it happen often?
I would never. I wouldn't say it happens often. And it's so hard for me to think of it as a pass fail kind of thing, especially, I mean, there's just so many layers to the consultation, to the evaluation. It really just is to make sure, it's ensuring the surrogate's own or the intended parent's own emotional wellness. It's not necessarily a bad mark on you, whether you pass or fail. It really is just making sure that you're prepared for the journey, and that we're doing what's best, in your best interest at the end of the day.
Okay. And also, I know our intake team spends so much time with a new surrogate candidate off the bat. Whenever someone reaches out to us expressing interest in being a surrogate, our intake team spent so much time just talking about the process and their commitments, their responsibilities and rights. So I'm sure a lot of the surrogate candidates who may not be a good fit will not even get to the psychological or mental health screening stage.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Usually by the time they've made it to me at that point of the intake process, the majority has, if they aren't going to qualify to move forward, they usually don't make it to me at that point.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because once they make it to that, basically when they make it to that stage, they have already, they already understand the commitment and the details about surrogacy.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, so during the journey, what kind of ongoing support is available to both intended parents and surrogates?
Sure. So for surrogates specifically, obviously, there are mental health providers on staff here at Family Source, and that is a great added benefit. But we also, we're a very collaborative staff. So, case coordinators, the match team, the surrogate intake team always have access to the mental health providers as well. So any questions, if they're sensing, these intended parents just, had a failed transfer and this is what we just went through, and I want to make sure we support them in the best way possible. So they reach out to us and maybe ask questions or ask for specific support. And so we're always supporting our staff to help support our clients as best we can. But like I said, surrogates specifically also have our GC, our surrogate Facebook page. They have our surrogate support Zoom meetings and in-person meetings if they're local to the Illinois area. So that is an added support. Obviously, that is not led by a mental health provider, but it is led by the greatest surrogate support team member that you can even imagine. Denise is fantastic in supporting those women, and they support each other as well. So I can't speak highly enough. But if mental health services are needed, myself or Sarah on staff are always happy to reach out and find somebody local to the surrogate or the intended parents to make sure that they can have that ongoing support that's close to them and easily accessible for them.
Okay. And when should intended parents and surrogates reach out for mental health support? Is there obviously if they need it, they should reach out, but is there a specific time if they don't feel like necessarily, okay, I need it this moment, right in this minute?
I think anytime. There's no shame in needing it or wanting it or just having it in your back pocket. Have somebody that, whether it's somebody you've worked with before as a therapist that you've worked with in the past, or looking for somebody that's specifically works in assisted, third-party reproduction. There are tons of providers that is what they specialize in. So I think it's important to seek out those individuals and have them, whether, like I said, whether it be on standby for like, hey, I'm going through this journey, I feel great now, but maybe, down the line, I'm going to want somebody to talk to, depending on, how this journey twists and turns. So I think any time is a great time to reach out and just kind of have that rapport established with a professional somewhere.
Okay. Sounds good. And then I have another question on the list, and after that, we'll address a couple live questions from our viewers. Okay.
Yeah.
The mental health support, how is it different how is it different? I guess, how is the mental health support for surrogacy different than regular counseling? Like, is there certain things that would specifically address if it's for surrogacy?
Yeah. Well, I kind of think of it as like, what's a good analogy? Like, I wouldn't go to an eye doctor if I have a broken arm, or I wouldn't go, I think every therapist has the same basic education that they get and, licensure that they obtain, but there is so much added specialization that individuals go through in order to really know the nuances of a surrogacy journey and third-party reproduction. So I think that, seeking out those that specialize in that field is very important, because they're going to know all of the different pieces. They're going to be able to provide you that, best support possible from a greater understanding of what it is that you're seeking out in terms of that support.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Megan.
Sure.
And some live questions from our viewers. One of them is, how long does the mental health screening takes for surrogates?
It really depends on how chatty some of them are. I typically say the PAI assessment takes about 45 minutes to an hour for a surrogate to complete. And then the clinical interview can be, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, just kind of depending on, like I said, how engaging they are, how much, them and their partners. Certainly, you add a partner to it lengthens it a little bit, because they have a little bit more to say as well. So really just kind of getting into those details. So I'd say in grand total to plan on maximum of about 2 hours.
About 2 hours. And are they able to break it into 2 sessions if they're
Absolutely.
not able to? Okay.
Yep. When I reach out to schedule, I give them that decision to make for scheduling. So they can do the PAI and we can schedule the clinical interview at a second time, or we can do them back to back if they're hoping to, get it done in one sitting.
Gotcha. Would the surrogate receive a copy of the report if they request it?
They do not receive a copy of the report if they request it. We keep those on file. We only share it with the fertility clinic for having them pre-approved.
Right. Got it. And another question is, does FSC require a group session between surrogates and intended parents?
That is also, so the match meeting, when held by myself or one of the other mental health providers on staff, that is the same questions that ASRM outlines for a group psychological evaluation. So the match meeting covers those same items. If it is myself that hosts it, and fertility clinics might request that they have a group session. So we will ensure, if a fertility clinic requires it, that it's conducted by the mental health professional and that we cover all of those important topics to make sure. But it really is fertility clinic dependent.
Got it. So some clinics will require it, some clinics don't. And if they do, it will get covered within our match meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. And another question is, I guess if the intended parents or the surrogates prefer to do it elsewhere, or their clinic offers the mental health evaluation or screening services, would they be able to do it elsewhere?
So for the surrogates, as our own screening process, we will still do the surrogate psychological evaluation, because that, like I said, is part of our screening process. We certainly don't want to be matching a surrogate that we haven't screened from that standpoint. But yes, if a fertility clinic has a specific list of providers they require, intended parents to see, and surrogates, some fertility clinics will still have the surrogate go through an additional psychological evaluation once they're into medical screening. So yeah, they can certainly have it done elsewhere that the fertility clinic recommends or that they've sought out themselves.
Got it. And since there was a question about how long does surrogate psychological evaluation takes, would you be able to share how long the intended parents mental health counseling session takes as well?
Yeah, usually about 30-45 minutes.
30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so it's not like, it's not terribly long.
Yeah, since they don't have that PAI assessment, it's much
Right.
a consultation and talking about the journey as a whole. Yeah.
Right. I imagine it kind of also depends on how chatty they are, right?
Absolutely.
So we have one last question from our viewer. Would you be able to share more about the intake process of a surrogate? Well, I know, Megan, you're not on the intake team. I guess, would you be able to share about the general screening process of a surrogate candidate in addition to the psychological evaluation? I'm also happy to help in, jump in and help add anything if you need.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, so when surrogates apply, they have a whole application they fill out. They go through a consultation call with one of our intake specialists. And during that, they cover all sorts of information about the surrogate, what's on her application. They also, discuss the process, the need for medications, the need for traveling. That's really an educational piece for the surrogate at that time as well. And once they, get paperwork signed and are officially coming through our intake process, there's the psychological evaluation, there's background checks, there are social media and Google searches that take place. There are, let me think what else. We collect all of their medical records. We get their clearance from their OBGYN and their most recent pap smear. All of those things kind of go into it to prepare her for being ready to match.
Got it. Yeah, I just wanted to add that, a lot of times intended parents will ask, oh, like, how do I know a surrogate you guys share with me is a good candidate and that kind of stuff. And I always tell them our intake team does a tremendous amount of work, like, from educating the surrogate and, just talking her through the process and sharing detailed information about the commitment with her, to completing all of the evaluation, like, psychological evaluation is one of them. And then there's a background check you already mentioned, and the medical records review and OB clearance letter. And we also do a detailed insurance review on the surrogate to make sure we know whether or not her medical, I guess, her health policy is surrogacy friendly. And if it's not a big deal, because we will purchase one for her. That's, obviously the policy we purchase is going to be surrogacy friendly, but it's going to be, there will be some cost there. But, these are all very, very important steps to complete, especially for at FSC, we complete them up front because I know certain agencies will do it after the match, but part of, I guess, one of the benefits of our program is that we complete all of these things up front. So by the time we share a surrogate profile with an intended parent, they just know the surrogate is a good candidate. And she, once intended parents approve of her after the match meeting, the surrogate can move forward with the fertility clinic right away. We'll share the records with the clinic, and then the surrogate will have a consultation and go to the clinic for medical screening.
Absolutely.
So that is, that's one of the benefits about our program. And I don't see any other live questions at this moment, but viewers, if you do have any other questions, this is your moment to type them out. But in the meantime, Megan, I would like for you to give, some general advice to the intended parents out there, or someone who is considering becoming a surrogate. Just, very brief advice, how to get started, or just anything you wanted to share with them.
Yeah, well, obviously, if you're a surrogate and you want to get started, go to our website, go to the apply button and hit that button and apply to become a surrogate. I look forward to seeing you at your psychological evaluation. But same with intended parents, reach out on our website if you want to get started through the journey. If you have questions as you're going through intake that are related to, the mental health aspect, ask your consultant, your IP consultant, or your GC intake consultant. Ask them to talk to the mental health providers. We're happy to connect with anybody to help ease any concerns before you get started in the journey. So that my advice would just be talk to people. There's tons of people here at FSC that are willing to support you and answer any questions to help you get started on your journey. And we're excited to work with you.
Yeah, exactly. I think spot on. That's what I wanted to share with the parents and with the surrogates as well. It is certainly a big commitment for you to make, and we will help you every step of the way to first help you understand how this works and what the commitment is. And if you do have any questions anytime, we will have someone there for you. And if you do have mental health related questions, just reach out to us or talk to your coordinator, and our team members like Megan will be more than happy to help you with any questions you have. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right, sounds good. I think we're going to wrap up our session today. I don't see any other live questions, but if you do think of any additional questions after the session, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. And Megan and I, we're both from Family Source Consultants, and you have our website, you have our contact information on our website. We look forward to chatting with you one day. All right, thank you so much, viewers, for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you as well, Megan.
Yes, thank you.
All right, bye-bye, guys.